It's time, ladies and gentlemen. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. Welcome to the Becoming Ronin podcast, the wandering man's journey to self-mastery. Here are your hosts, Obi and Smitty.
So today on Becoming Ronin, we have a very special guest. We have a pioneer in the fitness industry, David Weck. And David is someone that I've been following for many, many years because I've been in the industry since the late 90s. And I've just watched him invent things, create things. He's a teacher. He's an entrepreneur, someone that's very outspoken, but he's always on the path of trying to help people get better, more athletic. And he's very innovative in his training. One of the things I talked about with David early was that, I want to see something novel. I've been in the industry so long. I'm so tired of, the same type of fitness information getting repeated and rehashed, and no one has any innovative ideas. And that's something that I really appreciated about David's message. And we have him on today, and I'm very excited to hear him speak. How you doing, David?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm doing even better. I'm talking to you guys. I've followed you, Smitty, for a long time. You and Joe, a long time. Right? So if you're in this game, and you're really looking for information, you're going to come across Joe DeFranco and you, Smitty, because you just are. So I've known about Joe, and through Joe, you. And what I really appreciate is the open-mindedness and the willingness to personally test things. So I like to go on first principles physics, biomechanics, and that's the foundation. So if we're in violation of, our understanding of the physics or the biomechanics, well, then we're not going to optimize the system. And because athletic inadequacy is one of my superpowers, I was a Division III guy because there's no Division IV. I played defensive back in college. I studied the X's and O's in college football with some weeks 20 hours of film study. I would take the 16 millimeter camera. Yes, I'm that old. My first 2 years, 16 millimeter black and white, right? You got to splice that when it rips, and it does every 10 times. So I would take that into my dorm room, and I would study and study. So by the time Saturday came around, I'm playing with an advantage because I know your tendencies. I know the guard center split, and I can do keys and reads. And in the second half, I know your audibles. It's not that sophisticated, at Division III. And I played above my level studying the X's and O's. And then when I was done with football, I shifted my study of film to the biomechanics. And the logical place to start for me was fight, flight, response, ability. And what I didn't understand as a younger athlete was the fight part of it. And if you don't understand the fight part of it, well, you're not going to optimize the flight part of it because they're two sides of the same coin. And the center of mass of one's body can only move at the speed of gravity, and the limbs can move faster. So the fastest path to loading is drop and lift. You drop center and you lift base. Think Barry Sanders, right? Coming up, I drop and I lift, and that gives me a load. And depending upon what you do, bing, bing, I'm going to beat you with the juke, right? And if there's any restriction in that response, because you don't have tension dropping, you're being restricted with tension rising, it's the wrong direction. And we're talking about thousands or even smaller amounts of a second where you're either scoring a touchdown or, they're rolling you off on a gurney, right? And we've seen non-contact injuries just absolutely explode in sports. I mean, it's typical now that someone will be running on the field and they will collapse with a catastrophic injury, and nothing happened. What happened? He's running to play defense, and he's playing the Super Bowl, and he rips his Achilles tendon off the bone because he jumped up and down and ran into the field. Like, the athletes they're like 2 times bigger and 3 times stronger than they used to be. But in the 70s, I was playing outside barefoot the entire summer, climbing trees, riding bikes, getting just this development of the lower extremity. that today, if you're any good, you're in your, little tight cleats at 7 years old being, shepherded around to different traveling teams. So you're not getting the strength and coordination of your feet that you would otherwise get if it was just sort of, not as advanced and not as specialized. So we have athletes doing better things than they've ever done. You can't compare the eras in sports, except for boxing, I would say, where you can compare eras in boxing. But everything else is better now, right? By a large margin than it was. The training's better and the money's better, and the money draws in the talent. And if you were to, say to the athletes in the world, you're not allowed, you can't make money playing with a ball. Can't do it with a puck, can't do it with anything. You got to just do it running, jumping, and throwing 3 objects. You would see every world record fall if you brought the entire NBA and the entire NFL into track. I mean, Dwight Howard running the hurdles, he wouldn't have to hurdle, he'd just run.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
Did you start out like in fitness, the conventional path of strength training, bench squat, dead, like everybody else? Like, how did you get to a point where you figured out that type of training wasn't sufficient?
Yes. So especially if you can't get big enough and strong enough to make up for any kind of a deficiency. Because if you're a nose tackle in high school and you bench 450, you're probably going to be very effective at plugging the guy up who can only bench 225, right? And my beginning started with aesthetics primarily for the girls. And we would do 25 sets of bench press going up and down. And then we were done with the workout, maybe a couple curls, but nothing else ever in the beginning. And then for sports, well, now you got to squat and you got to deadlift and you got to do big things with your legs, right? And your back, you need to be strong. So I did, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like the bodybuilding splits, Monday's bench day in America. So I did all that and it helped me. I could dunk a volleyball. I ran a 4.640. I was doing a lot of things just instinctively correct, I would imagine. But my intent was guided off target when you get this concept that in order to sprint, you have to keep your head perfectly still, right? Can't let your head move, right? You got to tighten up the core, zip it up, right? We got to have these ball and sockets have the maximum transfer of force because we all know that the core doesn't generate power. It only transmits power. What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? Throw a baseball and tell me that your spine ain't driving it. Right? Swing a bat and tell me your spine ain't driving it. And then we have the experts, the highest level experts who are literally worshipped in our industry, saying things like, as the golfer's spine passes through neutral at ball contact. Okay, hold everything, take the needle off the record. We have a problem, Houston. We have a fundamental problem because what you've missed the plot on is the carryover to the sport. If you want to lift weights for lifting weight's sake, be a bodybuilder, be a power lifter. Right? But if you're in the weight room to make yourself better on the track, on the field, on the court, on the rink, or wherever the hell you're going to go, right? Well, now you have to understand the fundamental principles, and fight is a fundamental principle. And you need to understand torsion. I need to be able to internal torsion. I need to build external torsion. And that volumetric change in the pressure sacs in the fluid of my body, that now gets to move without changing where my center of mass is. So now I'm able to move without moving in the sense that I can position myself so that when I drop land, load, launch, I'm in perfect balance. If you throw a cat in the air, it's not out of balance. It's just going to do this and it's going to do this, right? It sights, it extends to external, it comes back to internal, lands perfect on all 4 feet. You throw a dog in the air and that's out of balance. That's out of control. You're going to land on his back, right? So what I want is I want the internal state of tension in your body to be perfect, meaning the tension is productive, the tension is not protective, okay? Because any imbalance in the body will elicit, reflexively by definition, it will elicit some compensatory tension that's going to tug on a part, and it's going to tug on a part, and you are literally pouring water into a cup with a hole in it if you're not landing every step in balance. And what are you going to do with the other 16 hours in your day? You spent 2 hours in the weight room, hour in the weight room. Well, Did you walk into the weight room in balance? And did you walk out of the weight room in balance? I think that's like 101. Does the tire hold air or not? Like, that's the first thing that we have to establish. And if you can't comport yourself and shift your weight and drop that shit so that you got it and you're poised to pounce, you don't get tired because you're using your skeleton for the force, right? What we want to do is suspend the bones and then send the force. It's fluid.
Can we back up to the
please
golfer example? And can you explain what the claim is that you were saying experts in our industry make about the golfer?
Yeah.
I was curious about what you mean by that.
So basically what happened was 2006, 2007, the narrative suddenly shifted to core stability was more important than core strength because the core doesn't generate power, it only transfers power. So therefore, we need to harness the ball and socket joints. So therefore, we need to brace the core because that gives us the maximum thrust through the ball and sockets. You're not in balance and you're not as powerful when the shoulders are flat and you're neutral and you're not differentiating. Because if I'm going to throw, there's a distinct verticalization of the horizontal plane that is the shoulders. And that gets my head into a position and it coils me. So I'm long and I get the contribution of long helping assist strong. And if I have that destination on my left leg and I have that destination on my right leg, where I can go to a position where I'm 100% and I'm 100% ready to knock you out or do whatever needs to be done, and I'm not getting tired. It's not my muscles burning. I'm not doing lunges feeling the burn. I'm doing lunges where I don't feel the burn. And when I don't feel the burn, now I can decide, I'm going to get my haunch. I'm going to get right at that glute hamstring attachment. Oh, I can feel that. Oh, yeah, baby. Because I got choices. I'm not like just corralled into imbalance where I can never be perfectly balanced if I'm not in balance. And human beings, persistence hunting, we are the apex predator. When it was sticks, stones, and ropes, it was we are the apex predator. We are more efficient. By stacking vertical, you have the highest potential, but it's also the most precarious position to be perched in is vertical. And we made that choice and we sweat and we communicate and we don't get tired, right? He can run faster, but I can run longer. So our ancestors moved with perfectly balanced locomotion. Otherwise, we come from the winners. We don't come from the losers. So if you were bracing your core and doing all that kind of nonsense, which you wouldn't have done because nobody would have been so confused as to instruct you to do so, because it's just false. And that's why I'm outspoken, because now in order to sort of boost that narrative that, core stability, you need rigidity. And if you're on an unstable surface, it will make you weaker. It's like, dude, I could wash a window with a hammer. Do hammers suck because I don't really wash the window well with it? So like, if we're going to, sort of contextualize a training tool, and we're going to suddenly demonize one as our mechanism to promote our narrative. And you have to remember, peer review, exercise science, and certification is legislated cash flow. I need 4 letters to work in high school, college, pros, and a lot of gyms. And they're 4 letters, and they better be the right 4 letters. And that means you have to answer their questions correctly, which means you had to give them an incorrect answer to pass their test. Okay. And the sycophantic, like religious zeal, with which these people hate me. I'm the charlatan. I'm the guy who's, just trying to make money. I'm the guy who's spreading dysfunction. I'm from New Jersey, motherfucker. If you make a false accusation for me, you have a problem that will not stop until the problem is no more. Okay. That is Jersey just is. Okay.
And what do you think that is like? What would people that hate on your messaging, I know people are naturally down on what they're not up on. Is it just simply that they're not familiar with what you're saying? Or do you find that there are more critics from listening to you? I'm curious to know, like, what is the flack that you're catching?
I can tell you what it is right now. In 1968, Fosbury did a different technique. Okay. In hindsight, if you don't understand that biomechanically, if I don't have to get my center over the bar, but I get over it versus the old technique where I have to get my center over the bar, that means I have the width of my waist as a natural advantage plus the posterior launch. Okay. He set the Olympic Fosbury flop. He set the Olympic record, winning the gold medal. He's a gangly, least athletic guy in the field, but he had the technique. Now, 1972. We're talking 4 years later. The gold medal is a lower jump, and he was doing the old technique.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is that is the cognitive dissonance and the willful ignorance of a scientist who is threatened with the concept that he might be dead wrong. Fight for reputation and credibility. They don't fight for money, okay? And because it's credibility, they fight even harder for the credibility than they would for money, okay? And they have that tremendous, I guess, integrity that it is the science and it's not the money. And because I make more money than them, a lot, you know, I'm bad because I make money, right? I used to hate Tony Little too, okay? I mean, we all have our righteous indignation, and the lower we are in the advancement, the more righteous indignation we have for the right things. And so for me, it's that they don't want to listen, and the very experts on the very top are politically savvy. So what they do is they don't get into the mud. McGill ragged on Gray Cook years ago. They had the great debate at Stanford.
Yeah, I saw that.
And McGill said the screens mean nothing. There's no correlation to whatever. Okay, whatever. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what McGill said.
Yeah.
And then Gray Cook is just a Southern gentleman. He's the nicest guy. And his approach was, look, if I'm not doing the absolute best thing, maybe what I did was help bridge us to the best thing. So I'm not sitting here pride of authorship and I'm the end all and be all. I'm just doing my best and presenting it to you guys. Right. And so it was a very cordial sort of, okay, well, go have a beer, a boot, like that kind of thing. And then when they're apart again, we're right back to square one where suddenly screens don't matter. It's this passive aggressive, whatever. But the followers, okay, the disciples who have paid their money, they are first earners, okay? It's not some rich housewife training 2 people. No, this is a guy who's turning on the lights, paying all the rent, doing everything. And he wants to be the best. And he's got hundreds of thousands, at least tens of thousands of guys who think exactly like him because 4 letters dictate what you have to know and be certified in that, we know that you know because you passed this test. Right. And now every 2 years, you got to re-up it. This is legislated cash flow. It's legislated. You can't get the job. There's no exceptions, right? If you're not those 4 letters, well, then we can't give you the job. Right here, cram for the fucking test. Get it.
Well, I wanted to, I love someone that's thinking outside the box. And I wonder when your epiphany happened, right? So you studied tapes when you were a football player. And did you take that same approach? Did you come into the fitness industry and say, all these people are talking about the core being static. It's creating the stability. There's no transference of forces. I'm going to look at how sprinters run. I'm going to look at how football players run. And what I'm seeing them execute on the field isn't what they're telling me the core does. Was that the epiphany? You were studying tapes, or what was the aha moment where it led you down this path?
Yeah, well, I think for me, I didn't start out with any preconceived notions. And when I invented the BOSU ball, I said to myself very early in that process, I will be the world's foremost expert on the subject of balance measured by locomotion. So that was the lighthouse at the shore because it's objective. Faster is faster. Fuck you, right? If faster is faster, then fuck you and your theories, right? Faster is faster. So I knew that. And then really the epiphany really hit me when I met a guy named Dean Brittenham, who his son Greg Brittenham was the strength coach for the New York Knicks, and he bought the BOSU balls real early when they were prototypes, and he wanted more of them. So rather than ship them, I drove up and hand delivered them and, had a great meeting. He's like, you need to meet my father. And his father, Dean Brittenham's out in San Diego, and he's got this elite training center where he's doing a lot of this holistic, full brain stuff. He'd have people doing these alternating body. He'd teach people to juggle. Like he would teach it so that your brain, he was real big into that Michael Gelb, and think like Leonardo da Vinci. Like, let's get your entire brain to harmonize, because in that state, the science does prove, or, the scientific tests are that if you're putting a golf ball and your brain waves are congruent with this harmony, you will sink a higher percentage than, it's usually the left brain saying, oh, shit, what if I miss? And the right brain going, oh, fuck, what if I miss? So limbically and in intellect, they're both like choking each other out with a lack of confidence unless you have it. So what happened was I started doing handwork with a staff, right? The tool is the teacher. And if I want to get really good at the continuity of the rotation of my distal to be in perfect accord with my proximal, now I can influence distal through proximal and I can influence proximal through distal. And where it really hit the epiphany was 2004. I was at a conference in New York City teaching, and Buddy Lee, who was a Marine, a Olympic wrestler, and one of the best jump rope guys in the world, I watched him put on his magic with the rope. And what I instantly recognized, because I was doing all this handwork, I was like, wait a minute, I don't need to jump at all. And if I don't jump, I'm not going to get tired. Because when I was a junior in high school and I was jumping rope for 20, 30 minutes, my 40 was getting slower and my height and the jump was getting lower, because that low amplitude pound the power out of you is not what I want on a football field, right? So I knew that jumping rope, that's for quick feet, changing them, boxing. It's not for athletics. It's not for running around, right? It just isn't. And it's a syncopated beat where the hands come down, the feet come up. So you're on the syncopated beat. You're not on the fucking beat. All right. And athletically, it's the beat with the rotation is the answer. Okay. You cannot do better than that. Okay. If you gave me 6'4", 245, 260, I would be so fucking dangerous. I could play football today at 54. Listen, you guys have probably seen my hip recovery.
Yeah.
I had a hip replaced and I was jogging when I got off the table. The nurse is going, no. I'm going, I'll sign the waiver, baby. And it's just because when they do a hip replacement, the skeletal structure and that hardware, it has integrity. They want you to walk. And so now if you get off the table and you're really afraid and you don't know balance and how simple it actually is, you're now like, you're putting yourself worse out of balance as you like hold on to the walker and like no step is aligned. So what happens to the tissue as it's remodeling itself and healing and repairing if the forces going through it are aberrant? It's sort of like you have a genotype with the DNA that is spiral, it's integrated, it's beautiful, it's perfect. That's your genotype. We come from the winners, right? But the phenotypical actualization of that is we're messing it up. And it's so easy to restore. Because if you have me doing the most insidious exercise ever performed in exercise training is the Palloff press. And it is what it is. I'll explain exactly why. Because if you do that, it proves to me and anyone who knows anything about it that you don't know what you're talking about. Like you literally don't know what you are talking about because you haven't prioritized the balance. It is literally that simple. And so when the expert, like the pinnacle, top of the mountain, right, the world's foremost expert, when the golfer's spine passes through neutral at ball contact, it's not acceptable. That's not saying abductor when I meant to say adductor. We all know, blah, blah, blah. This is a fundamental misunderstanding. And now think of the reach of this misunderstanding. And so now I'm outspoken because, well, from 2007 to 2017, I said nothing. At no point did I ever retaliate to anyone bashing the BOSU ball because I'm like, all right, I'm going to put gas on the fire. If the charlatan comes out and starts fighting, well, then he's even more of a charlatan, right? So I said nothing. And then when I invented the Propulse speed trainers, they are such a revolutionary invention that you can add mass, weight that is non-contractile to the distal extremities, no less, and you can run faster up a hill or upstairs, and it costs less energy because the burden of 12 ounces is less than the return that I get when I snap it down and recoil up. I mean, it is what it is. All right. And so when I had that invention, I was like, oh, shove this thing down your throat. It's going to be whatever that movie was, the human centipede, right? Line them up and it's going in the mouth and then it's going through and it's going through another mouth. And like, I was going to get even with the peer review. You trust me. I played this character, Uncle Weck. I was doing like, $1,000 of THC a week, sometimes more. And I was like on the East Coast, during the time I, was growing up, it was alcohol. That's all we did. And do anything else. And weed was for losers and burnouts or whatever. And so I drank and I used that to off gas the pressure of being type A with a B+ body and talent. How do I do it? I have to beat the better man. So when I came out to California, I'm like meeting people and they're like, you're super successful. Like, you smoke every night, really? So it sort of gave me the leeway to experiment. And then it was like, holy shit, like the sensitivity that I would get and the electrification of energy and the kundalini, my teeth would get sharper and I'd be like, "Ugh." It would just feel this incredible power because it was sensitive. Meaning, if you're bigger than me and stronger than me and you don't know how to fight, you're never going to find my center. I'm going to knock you out. And I'm going to break your left rib. I'm going to break your left jaw. And it's going to be even worse on your right side. Okay, just that's what's going to happen. Because I have the sensitivity. You ain't going to find me. And then I am going to...
I don't know. Smitty's a 2-stripe white belt now. So
Three. How dare you?
I have to go back to
David's a blue belt.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, well, here's the thing with jiu-jitsu. I did not like jiu-jitsu. Salo Ribeiro was giving me private instructions. This is like a gift from God. He's one of the most storied players and teachers in jiu-jitsu. And I was like, Salo, with respect, I just don't want to do jiu-jitsu. Like, I'm not flexible. I don't like being on the ground. Like, I don't want to do it. And then my son did a mischief thing. He got in trouble. And I'm like, all right, well, we got to do something. Your punishment, instead of spanking you, well, you're going to do something, right? You want to do jiu-jitsu? Yeah, we'll do jiu-jitsu. He lasted 3 months and then he really wasn't into it. I said, all right, well, you're not quitting. You're just stopping for a time, right? So that's sort of the mindset. And then I got the bug and I just kept on going. And now I do most of my training private with black belts. So I'm not good at moves and I don't like drilling moves. And if I don't like to do it, I'm not competing and I'm not going to do it if I don't like to do it. There's no reason for me to do it. But I'm not going to get beat by jiu-jitsu like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I'm not in the guillotine anymore because I didn't know better. Do you understand? And it comes in very useful if you have to subdue another person without hurting them. It's an incredibly valuable martial art to have. If you're a boxer, you're going to have to hurt the guy, right? But if you do jiu-jitsu, I remember my son is bigger than me and his grip strength is stronger than me. And like, he's got the vitality. He's 15 years old and he has a temper. And, if I can't stop him, then a $3,000 computer is going to get smashed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is bad. So I'm able to now subdue him with the jiu-jitsu that I know. And so I'm able to, de-escalate a massively bad situation and there's no harm.
Yeah. It's all about control.
Yeah, it's all about the control.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I do want to go back to the BOSU ball and pick your brain because I want to know how you originally intended it to be implemented or what it's trying to train. Like what was the vision for it?
Yeah.
And tell me how you originally intended people to use it and what benefits they would have got from it.
Great question. So basically what happened was stability balls were all the rage, and the stability ball was the one tool that really helped me overcome my chronic back pain that had lasted for more than a year. So what happened was I lived in Manhattan. I was a personal trainer and an actor, burning the candle at both ends. I rollerbladed exclusively for 6 years. I didn't walk for 6 years. And my feet got so weak that when I dropped my motorcycle and yanked it up and felt the twinge in my back, the next day or 2 days later, I collapsed in pain. And I didn't realize that weak feet weren't going to allow me to send tension down. So it gets down to the weak foot. And then if you step on a Lego, everything goes up. It doesn't go down. And if it goes up, you're a deer in headlights and you're going to get smashed. But if you go down, you get the score touchdown, right? So that aspect of the stability ball, there's risk inherent in standing on it. So I got to the point where I could stand on it, and the benefits that I didn't understand then, 2 benefits are the articulation of the feet getting stronger from the interface and the ability to relax in the face of that where your reaction would be this, but you learn how to respond by this. So good athletes figure it out down in the lower body and they arrange the upper body to be balanced. And balance starts from the top down. I don't care about your feet if your head is and your body's like here, there's nothing your feet can do. So when your upper body guides the movement and then the feet are commensurate with that systemic balance. And in martial art, where the head goes, the body goes, right? I mean, they tell you that in jiu-jitsu first early in the thing, right? Where the head goes, the body goes. That's martial art 101. So the stability ball involved risk, and I could jump onto it, and I could, jump from one ball to another. I could even squeeze it and jump a rope with it. I was really good at it. And I also was training the softer side based in Feldenkrais, where you reduce all effort so you can feel the slightest gradation of force and then fix it. But if I'm grinding my teeth carrying a piano, how am I going to know if a fly landed or not? It's just too much effort that sort of drowns out the signal of where an inefficiency may be. And neurologically, I was using the stability ball in something that you can't really do it safe enough to do it. And that was when I'm aggressive and I'm jumping on top of it, I know there's risk, so I'm prepared for it. But I did this. I was watching the Knicks lose the finals in 1999, and I'm standing on a 75 centimeter. That's like a big one. And I'm in a 200 square foot apartment, and I close my eyes and I tilt my head back. So I've eliminated visual and I'm fucking with vestibular. And I've got the proprioceptive fucking ball, right? So you're getting all this stuff. And I fell, I bounced on the ball, I landed across, I landed on my neck, and I started kicking my feet. The first thing I did was kick my feet to make sure I could still kick my feet. I was truly scared. And so I was like, all right, I'm not going to push it to that level. But that was the minimalist stuff where you would think there's no risk. But it was much riskier because you're not preparing yourself for the catastrophe. And so that night I'm pondering, like, how am I going to continue this training? Because this is the stuff that's making me integrated and feel better. And like, what if I cut the ball in half? And it was like an instant after. I was so excited because I've never seen that. That will have more utility than a stability ball. I'll sell them, millions of them, and they'll never stop selling. They're going to sell BOSU balls when I'm dead, because it's just, it's become a thing that has utility, that if you're in the profession, you're going to use it at some point, right? And it just does certain things. And, to have Joe DeFranco tell me that, the best way he could bench press is dumbbells on a BOSU ball. I mean, is Joe DeFranco tough? Does Joe DeFranco know what he's talking about? He'll be the first to tell you, yeah, everybody beat up the BOSU ball. That's what we did back then. He's like, I thought you didn't even like me. Well, if you shit on the BOSU ball, then I'm going to throw an arrow back too. But I like you a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And then there's different camps and the little fiefdoms, and my master's better than your master. And I'm guilty of it because I'm competitive. I want to be better than everybody. Right. And the difference between me and a lot of people is I will admit that. A lot of people, like the insult that I used to get back in the day was, you're a product guy, I'm a programming guy, right? You're a product guy. Right, you're a product guy. And it worked to my advantage in the beginning with the BOSU ball, because I could go into the weight room and I could be like talking to a strength coach. I'd be, look, here's some things you can do on it, and then you're going to find out what works best, and then that's going to add to the collective intelligence. And that was sort of the thing. And everybody in that time was much more receptive to it because the stability ball was so popular. Everybody, and then you guys know the pendulum swings and it's too far and you swing too far. Yeah, somewhere in the middle. And so but now that I know movement, I know it better than anyone has ever known it. And the reason why is modern technology gives us leisure and convenience, so we get to engage in frivolity and triviality. Jumping over the Grand Canyon on a motorcycle like a Red Bull athlete, there's no time for that bullshit when it's survival. And it's sticks, stones, and ropes. There's no opportunity to specialize when it's life and death, right? So an unarmed combat is a joke. I mean, that is a contrived nonsense a long time ago. If you show up to the fight without a weapon or the hunt or whatever, you lose. It's just that simple. So we have the social agreement that you're not going to attack me, I'm not going to attack you, and therefore we can, play tiddlywinks or whatever the hell else we want to do, right? So because of that popularity, the BOSU ball was very receptive. I was able to sell it at the highest levels, and the U.S. ski team loved it. So they got 26 handmade units. I made probably 300 handmade units. Took 6 hours to make them, because if you're inventing something, it's the intellectual property, it's the manufacturing, and it's the marketing, and distribution. But those are the three big things. So while you're shoring up your intellectual property, you build a working prototype and you test it in, non-disclosure. See if it's worth spending more money and time, right? Does the concept work? Well, yes, it does. And I had a wide range of clients, from 7-year-old boy all the way up to like 89-year-old guy and a bunch of affluent Jewish women in between. And that was my New York City personal training. And it worked with everybody. I think what I intended it to be was dome side up. Okay, so I never really intended it to be platform side up because the magic is not in the platform side up. If it were just platform side up, it would be another wobble board and people wouldn't beat it up because it wouldn't be famous. So on the dome, it creates this unique combination of stability and unstable. So BOSU, balance of stable, unstable, because the device itself is a convex trampoline. I can jump on a BOSU ball with many times body weight, and the device I can count on to always be there for me. I'm not going to get hurt. So my nervous system is now relaxing, right? So I'm able to load that thing with absolutely no instability. And the only instability is a very attenuated instability because it can't shoot out from under you. So now you have a tremendous learning situation. And I would say to the peer-reviewed exercise science who bashed the BOSU ball, it caused hundreds of thousands of influential, best-educated trainers to hate it and campaign against it. I would say, look at the lower extremity. What is the greatest, what limbs or what parts of the body experience non-contact injuries the most? I mean, just go up the fucking chain. Your shoulder doesn't happen the most with a non-contact injury. It's your ankle and it's your knee, right? Those are the things that get destroyed from a non-contact. So we have to understand this. When I played football, I never saw a guy run and just collapse. I never saw it. Never happened. He wasn't strong enough to hurt himself, and his feet were strong enough to deal with what he could handle. So now you make the athlete stronger, and then you imbalance them up top with this rigidity. Palloff press is the worst because the harm is invisible. The neural engram and the strong that you're developing is exactly wrong because it's 100% uprooting and you're defending the defenseless. So in martial art, strength coaches don't know martial art. Strength coaches would get into a fight by bumping their chest out. Oh, yeah, you want to step outside? Fucking punch him in the nose. Right? My daughter could beat that guy up. Seriously, I taught her how to hit you in the nuts, hit you in the nose. Right? I don't care, right? You need to know martial or get the fuck out of here or learn it, right? And it's dominating the inside is the way that you dominate somebody. Like, the bench press, you're way out here and you're building these chicken breasts that I can't even get to the inside, right? Like, I can't even button my shirt at some point, right? So the Palloff press is giving you the restrictive tension that you're holding on to for dear life, not trying to move your core. And all you'd have to do is just turn into it, differentiate. If I hit a baseball, I don't hit it here. I hit it here, right? And I care. I've been called the wimp. I've been called the charlatan. I'm not a wimp and I'm not a charlatan. And this will inevitably, I win. I know that with certainty. The question is, how many years does it take? And I'm 17 when I invented the Pulsars. That's when I said, hey, this deserves to be everyone. I spent more money on the Pulsar patents by a factor of 5 because I knew. And I'm writing that patent. I'm waking up at 5 a.m, keying in that patent, working with my patent attorney. And I'm just keying it in. I'm going, okay, the quality with which I write this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, right? Nike made this, right? Mr. Patent Examiner, is it infringing? Yes, it is. If you're the little guy, you have to be armed with the intellectual property that makes it not worth the fight for the big guy to come and crush you. And that's what the big guy will come and do. If there's money to be made, the people who can make that money are going to step in and make it, right? And that's why I never even... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, I think it makes a lot of sense with the athletics. I grew up around boxing, and it always struck me as odd to think that we should be training a rigid spine. As soon as you watch boxing, you realize that goes out the window. And like you said, swinging a baseball bat. And one of the things I really liked, I saw you post a video. This is a while back now, but it was unique in that you were filming, I believe it was your father, walking down a hallway.
Oh, yeah. I was teaching him to head over foot.
That was so good too, because I train a lot of special populations. We do a lot of post rehab in our facility. And one of the things I always noticed was there's a hesitancy, but there's a rigidity that normal gait pattern goes out the window. And I saw you working with your father on restoring, like the natural reciprocal, the pendulous movement. And I was like, that is so good. Cause I hear you talk a lot about athletics, and that makes a lot of sense to me. But could you talk a little bit about what you were doing with your father there?
Absolutely. So basically, head over foot and the ability to coil the core to position the head such that when you land the next step, you're there. I'd say to people, you have to be there when you get there, right? And if your head's in the middle, you better be going in the direction of where your head is, because if my head's in the middle of my foot, the force vector goes that way. It doesn't go straight anymore, right? It's all shin angles, right? Shin angle is everything, and forward intent is through the feet. Right. Even if I want to go backward, it's forward intent in the feet. Use that lever. I never fall back on my heels. And even if I do fall back on my heels, I dorsiflex. So that would relationshiply take shin angle and do that. Okay. Most important thing. Well, no, most important thing is that the head's over the fucking thing to begin with. Like that is the most important thing. So what I'm doing with my father is I'm saying, okay, we're going to use the distal extremities, and there's a lot of strategies you can use. But if I just literally like deadlift hands, deadlift hands, deadlift hands, deadlift hands. Now this encourages my body to do this. And as long as I synchronize that with my steps, all right, now maybe we can lose the assist. And hip replacement recovery. I mean, the doctors at the Stedman Clinic, I have like the legendary hip replacement guy, Joel Matta, did my right hip 9 years ago and my left hip 22 days ago. And the balance that I have of head over foot has made this recovery just like so fast.
Yeah.
And it's just the knowledge. The knowledge is the power. And my hip, I still can't flex it. I can't do much, and I'm doing zero like stretching and like offline stuff. I'm doing longitudinal bone transmission. How strong is a femur vertically oriented, and how strong is a femur horizontally? Boom, it snaps. But here, you can put 1,000 pounds on it. It's just strong. No. And what's funny about what's funny about that is in the pamphlet that they give you, it's like, do I need to do physical therapy? They're like, no. This is a hip surgery. Just doing your day will rehab your hip. It's the easiest joint to replace. The recovery is extremely fast relative to knees and shoulders and all that stuff. Hip is just so simple. And the confidence that I have that if the surgeon did his job and my skeletal structure has integrity like 2 hours after the operation, well, then you borrow on that. And what I did was I've gone through so many different phases. I've weighed 205 pounds and can honk and deadlift a lot. And I've weighed 145 pounds, weak as can be. A lot of pull-ups kind of stuff, but not strong moving stuff, right? And I invested in the weakness of my muscles because I'm lazy, but I'll work as hard as necessary to be lazy. So I'm not a lazy person, but I enjoy being lazy. And so I have to earn lazy. And so in my movement, I have earned lazy. So I literally never sweat. And I got a Jim Butler here. I'm like, put 1,000 pounds on the sled. I'm going to come out there. I'm going to shoot a video and then take it apart. So like that's awesome. Literally, that's what I do. Right. And jiu-jitsu is the only place where I ever sweat and exert and get exhausted. Right.
Yeah.
So, but my muscles, like 2 weeks ago, if I squeezed my quad, you could push into it. Like when I was a younger guy, I could make that thing rock hard. My muscles, like my legs, are so weak, it is ridiculous. But because I use my body well, I can pick shit up that other guys can't pick up, and they're stronger than me, right? And that's like the best feeling in the world is the underdog winning. It's boring if the favorite wins. But if you're an underdog and now you win, like that's a story. That's what it's about. And so now what I'm doing is I'm going to make, with the hip recovery, I'm going to have no pain because my left hip, I made it 9 years on pain. Okay. Like both hips were destroyed. I broke my right elbow at 16-year-olds in football, and the surgeon was terrible, and he botched 2 operations, messed it up. And look at it. It's look at it. There's not, I don't have it. So I can't straighten it and I can't support weight through it. And that, if you don't have a tricep, you better pull your lat into the game. Otherwise, you're going to lose, right? So 16 years old, I don't know anything about movement. I don't know the first clue other than what's instinctive, right? And so I always was torquing this. I mean, if I pose for a picture, my head is this way, like, and my whole body's tilted. And that puts stress on the joints. You know what I mean? So my hips got destroyed. And I was putting 500 pounds on my back and going down to, what I'll say is parallel, and maybe you say it's a half-inch now, right? So I was doing heavy weightlifting, and then I've lived my life hard, jumping 8 feet in the air on rollerblades and stuff like that. So I had worn out my body, and I made it 9 years, and I would have made it a lifetime, just navigate around it, whatever. Everybody got to deal with something. So navigating around that. But then when I did jiu-jitsu, the range of motion and my hips are not flexible. The bones aren't lined up to be flexible. So a non-compliant 220-pound man forcing you into a position that your hips don't go into. I got up off the jiu-jitsu mat. I'm like, if I keep doing this, I will not be able to work around it. And that's when I was like, okay, fuck it. Let's just replace it and give me 8 months. And now I'm going to get fast. And that is going to be so fun to get fast.
Oh, I remember when I first started. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I remember when I first started jiu-jitsu, I was very non-compliant to the position. And Obi didn't care. He just forced me. And
that's not true.
No, he bent me up. Made me sad. But
I
have a long question. I'll let you go.
I have just a quick question to wrap up that point. Or maybe it is a long question. I don't know. But I'm going to ask it. But back to kind of wrapping up what you were doing with your dad, it's just making me think of most of who we train is Gen Pop. We do have a boxing team, and I'm already, the wheels are spinning on some things we could do with them. But how do we move forward as an industry? Like, what do you see as it's so hard to tell on Instagram. Everyone's doing flashy things, and I'm always curious to know how much of the training is like that. Are you still doing any type of other training with dumbbells, kettlebells? I'm just curious to know what you think would be the next step for the industry.
Well, I think the next step is really the first step, where we establish the understanding and the practice and the discipline that we're going to get people to perfectly balance locomotion as our first objective. Like session 1, I'm less interested in taking out a goinometer and measuring every joint in your body and tell you all the things that are wrong and how we're going to fix them all. I'd rather say, any problems, if it hurts, we're going to stop. Let's go. You know what I mean? To me, find the reasonable thing. But if your paradigm is that core stability is the priority and core stability is defined as rigid spine, which it is, and that's just conflating deadlifts and squats with movement. That's all it is. There's times to do that. And I advocate. I'm not one of these functional guys. Oh, barbells suck. Yoga sucks. Go fuck yourself. What? Really? Barbells suck? I learned to not bash tools. Chris Chamberlain, eroding weakness. You want to see pound for pound just better than most at the widest array of things, prizing strength, like shocking strength, right? And I made him stronger. That's why he works with me. He came in, he met me, and 15 minutes later, he went home and he did a 45-pound PR. 45 pounds with the thing he couldn't lift, and suddenly he lifted it.
How did you do that? Was he doing mostly barbell stuff?
It's the coil. What it is nobody has ever tapped into the lower lat lumbodorsal fascia the way that I figured out how to do it. And when you tie in the lat and every tissues, how does it mesh in, right? Does it go deep here and one's here? I don't care. Whatever you got, I'm taking all slack out of it and I'm compressing it into a coil spring where the hip goes, the shoulder goes down and back, the hip comes up and forward, and you are, boom, you're coiled to come right out of it. So what I think, the paradigm and the first principle of physics and the biomechanical understanding, I believe that relate to gait should be that is the mandate is relate to gait. Oh, mandate, relate to gait. Yay. So, but unless you're going after something else, right? If you want to specialize so much in powerlifting, well, we can sacrifice the fact that you won't run as fast, right? So, but for Gen Pop, which is where we make our money, if you're honest, right? Very few make it only high level. The high level is the neon sign that says I'm the best. And then at 2 p.m, on a Thursday in October, there's no NFL guys there. Right. It's their wife. It's whoever, right? But yeah, the industry needs to get on solid footing. And we need to have definitions that, are I don't consensus in the right manner of achieving it as to the wrong manner of achieving it. So if I'm seeking consensus and I'm using bully tactics and legislated cash flow and I have a position, whatever, like that's not it. But if it's the other side of it, well then, yeah, that is it. And I think that's the biggest thing, because once you understand gait, you truly understand that everything is derivative to gait, and gait is rolling on the floor. Gait is just moving your ass from A to B. That's all gait is. You can do it brachiation, you can do it swimming, you can do it jumping, and you can do it walking and running, which is the most efficient way to do it. And it's an entire body movement. The spine is driving it. You can lop off your legs and still walk upright. Okay, I'll show you a video if you don't believe me. It's the spinal engine. The pedestrian theory of locomotion, where the upper body essentially just rides on top and maybe, counterbalances with reciprocating arm action, and walking. You're falling and recovering, falling and recovering. We're falling all the time, aren't we? Right? You're falling, I'm falling. You're falling because the chair is preventing us from falling further, but we're all falling at the time. I don't want to lose my balance, falling forward and having to recover anything. That's not, otherwise you would be the road runner. You can't have backside mechanics forever and still keep running faster. You fall over, right?
Right.
So you need to have that vertical integrity, and walking, it is positioning it there. And when you do that, what's going to happen is you're going to now understand that, oh, that's a functional application, but the training is to take it to the absolute extreme. Because when I have the absolute extreme, I'm able to tie it all together now. So now when I'm in here, having gone here, there's no restriction here. It's perfect here. But if I've never gone to extreme, well, I got further to go. I don't have that sanctuary of safety and prowess of landing on a perfect balance. So I think I think it's as simple as that, and just understanding that. And that will inform and change everything. You will no longer do tall kneeling chops. You will no longer do parallel press. You will no longer do so much bullshit because it's not effective. And in some places like the Palloff, it is counterproductive. I think you couple the fact that they've been having people squeeze themselves stiff and silly for so long, combined with bashing a BOSU ball that is probably the greatest lower extremity trainer on the planet. Okay. Because I can jump into it ballistically. It's always going to give me a little different force. The ankle becomes extremely strong, but extremely intelligent. What's the best way to not twist your ankle? Well, don't dangle your foot so that it gets caught, right? Have the proprioception that you don't get into trouble. That's the best way, right?
Yeah.
Master, how do I get out of, what's the best way to get out of a rear naked choke? Well, don't get in a rear naked choke. That's the best way to get out of it. Because once you're in it, you're in it.
Well, I remember even in college. Well, first off, one of the things I like that you said was just like the consensus. I feel like people hide behind that a lot of times. And something that's come up on this podcast even is that science is not a conclusion, it's a process. So I appreciate
Otherwise, it's not science.
Exactly. So I do find that, Smitty and I have talked about that a lot on the podcast, is there's absolutely no point to bash a tool. All that's doing is showing your ignorance around what that tool can offer you and
closing you off to the potential.
Yeah.
What it can offer. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things this highlights in my memory of neurophys in school was they talked about cats on a treadmill and their spinal cord was severed. So they had no ability to send any signal to their extremities. And they put them on a treadmill and let the belt move, and their extremities automatically move as if they're walking. And they talk about how locomotion is at the spinal level. It's a general motor pattern that's ingrained past the brain. So we don't actually have to send the signals. And what you're talking about with increasing the efficiency of it makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm wondering, is that the propulsors that you have? I've seen them, but maybe if you can explain them a little bit. So if anyone hasn't seen them that's listening.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the thought behind that? Like the more of a stretch, the more of a contraction?
Well, yeah. So basically we're eliciting what I call a connective tissue recoil. A connective tissue recoil is what we want to elicit. And so what the pulsars are is actually they're an upper body open chain plyometric. So they have a shifting weight. And what the shifting weight does is it games the physics by removing the inertia. So if it's a solid weight and I send it fast, to amortize out and in is going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort if it's a solid weight. But when it's a shifting weight, I can thrust it and stop it as if I'm not holding it, because the weight has to shift before it hits. So all of that inertia that would make the amortization slow and therefore not plyometric, I figured it out. You shift the weight and you get a microsecond where you've already stopped it and then it hits. So instead of doing this, you go here and it hits, here and it hits. And so what happens is you are sending considerably more force to the floor when you jolt the arms. And talk about aha moments, Smitty. May 1st, 2010, Shane Mosley is fighting Floyd Mayweather. In the second round, Mosley hit Mayweather, and it looked like that was going to be it. Second round knockout. I had been doing these spiraling exercises based on the Chinese acupuncture meridians. Trust me, they overlap one for one. If you know what the fuck you're doing, then you understand. So I had habituated this sort of like flick the fingers out, roll them up into sort of this surrounding the center with the outside like that. And it was just sort of, okay, well, this is the lung, that's the heart, air and blood, whatever. And this is the pericardium. Not important now, but I had done that. So when that happened, I jumped up in excitement and my air and my blood went wide. And the pericardium, the large intestine, and the triple warmer are the three triangles. And I did that. And later that night, all I did was that. And I was like, holy shit. This thing here, I'm triangulating the bones. I have a longitudinal bone axis now. That creates a triangle. Triangles geometrically are the strongest shape versus this. That joint is pathetic. Okay. That's going to break or get damaged. They're disintegrated. All these are sort of on their own. They don't triangulate. So as soon as you triangulate and make them straight, Tai Chi Chuan translates to supreme ultimate fist, and the Tao and yin yang and all that, that's the foundation of what I do as well, right? And it's a one-for-one overlap with West. It's just a different way to describe it. We're quantum math, principle of uncertainty, right? And they're yin yang opposites. And I say, well, guess what? You are there and you are there. I don't know where you are until I triangulate, create my depth perception, and then I shoot the bird and I get to eat and live. Yay. But I don't know where you are. I don't know. Quantum math, it doesn't know. Yin and yang, right? So it's all about same, but different, and applying these principles and philosophies to your practice. And the more informed you can be, built on the foundation that is perfect balance. When you achieve the perfect, there's this catalytic crystallizing effect where the sum is greater than the parts. And now you start doing stuff that you didn't even know you could do. I can do stuff now that I never expected I would be able to do when I was in my 20s. I started studying martial art in my 20s in Manhattan. The instruction was absolutely terrible, but I read the books and read the principles, and I learned practically nothing. But I understood the principles. And then when I came out to California and I started rope flowing from the Buddy Lee, I just took the jump out and I spent 30 days not jumping. I got handy with that rope. And suddenly I was like, holy shit, I just downloaded the info. Like, I know that martial art now because I had a teacher that never lies to me. It's 100% consistent. It's 100% honest. And it will only do that which I do with it. And it's giving me the feedback. And the difference between a stick is more useful for survival if you have to pick your choices. Stick is the most useful. It's a spear, it's an arrow, right? The rope leverages the power, creates a sling, creates a bow and arrow. And the stone, it doesn't throw as well as the stick, right? So stick is the priority. But from a training standpoint, the rope is the number one superior tool. It is the Rosetta Stone of training modalities because it is instant by instant continuity and integrity that you can sense in the now. And you will attenuate to perfect because the rope will take you there. You're hitting it wrong. Well, you didn't hit it wrong. Oh, you didn't hit it wrong. Oh, it's more right. And in a block of 10 minutes, you could easily do more than 1,000 repetitions. The only way you're going to train the nervous system is with repetition. If you're going to do 5 sets of 3 or whatever, well, you ain't going to learn any skill other than, moving a weight, right?
Right.
So the rope flow gave me like, God, this like now I can, when I was 26 and I studied martial art, I thought to myself, oh, I should have done this when I was younger. That's too late. I can never get really good at this. You know, if you want to be a ski jumper, probably do it when you're 5, not when you're 50, right? That sort of, I don't know, the dilemma that, I mean, I missed this. And then I really thought I did. And I put that one in the closet and said, all right, well, that, you know, what's next? And then I discovered ropes. I'm like, holy shit, I can quickly download this. And now I can do the mathematics and the calculations faster than the opponent. I'm not thinking. He doesn't even know. And I beat him. And we play a game called Push Hands. And it's based in Tai Chi, but it's a little more athletic than the way Tai Chi would do it. And it's basically just, you're not allowed to grab and hold, and there's no striking, and it's just belt to neck. That's the only places you can touch. And then it's just who can move the other man. Who's a better man, right? Can you move me or can I move you? And by eliminating the wrestling and the grabbing, all of a sudden it turns into skill because there's no wrist control anymore. There's no like stasis, right? You're not being encumbered from doing these little tiny things they can't interpret. And so you're not going to find my center and I'm going to find yours. And now I can exploit that and you can't. And all it is because I have better software. I have downloaded better software than my opponent. And if I were an amazing athlete, nobody would know nothing, okay? I would not tell anybody. I would tell people do Palloff presses. That's all I do. That's all I do.
The way I see it, I have 1,000 notes here. I definitely want to have you back on for part 2, just because I have so many questions and thoughts, because what you're saying is opening up maybe not the holes, but maybe the
blind spots.
The blind spots to traditional strength training. I say it all the time. The word you just used, stasis, right? It's that static strength. Strength training is all about creating a foundation to generate movement from, but that stasis really disconnects you from integration, the way you put it. And the integration with your feet on the BOSU ball, the integration of how you grip a fist, you're reconnecting with yourself. And I think that aha moment when you saw Buddy Lee with the jump rope, and he wasn't just moving his hands proximal, he wasn't moving his hands distal, he was also moving his body proximal in relation to what his hands were doing. You saw that aha moment of that reconnection of, wait a minute, I'm not doing a Palloff press and my arms are in motion. I'm not creating the stability in my body and my extremities are in motion. I'm moving my extremities in relation to the movement of my body. So I'm reconnecting. I'm reintegrating. And I thought that's an aha moment for me today, just because I do see, I'm always looking to complement. What's the complement to strength training for longevity? Right. I always say tension into the body makes the body rigid. Right. So the complement of coiling and integrated movement could be this complement that maintains your integration or your ability to move fluidly or your ability to move with locomotion and recentering and
the word I liked was communication.
Communication.
Recommunicating body parts that are kind of blind to each other.
Yeah. I think that's such a, now, as I moved into someone that has 4 decades in the gym, all my programming and my message on my website and our fitness app and all these things, it's transitioning to longevity, because now I have the, the miles on the tires, right? I'm able to talk with authority. 1, because I had the education, but 2, I have 4 decades in the gym. And that's when we talked on the phone before the podcast, my biggest thing was the best coaches are always open to learning new things. And I'm 4 decades in, but I'm still learning how to integrate my training to become a more holistic mover, if you will.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Okay. So basically, stiff is not stable. If I'm in a high-rise building and it's not swaying, get out of the building. If I'm on a suspension bridge and it's not swaying, get out of the bridge, get off the bridge, because stiff is not stable. The only time that and I don't even like the word stiff to describe proximal, because it's all fluid in the proximal. Flat tendons and it's short tendons. Like if you look at the elbows out and the knees down, that's where all you could call it stiffness is, but this is pressure. It's fluid. Right? If I think stiff, it's just the wrong connotation. Like, as an athlete, okay, get stiff. Like, what the fuck? What? Stiff? I'm not going to move as well. I'm going to get tired, right? And, it's just not going to be as effective. Play fast and loose. Don't play stiff and fucking square. That's not a good thing. And another thing about the BOSU ball, and this is sort of a less understood thing, and I didn't understand it for many years. I discovered it, and it's called limit force elastic training. And elastics principally can be in a form of a band that I stretch, elongate, or a ball that I compress. And the BOSU ball is an elastic surface that I can compress. So how I would have you do like a coil push-up on it is I'd have you line up, and then I'd have you blade like here. So one side is coiled, and I would have you compress to center. The natural path of the arms is center and out. Like, that's the natural path. That's not the natural path. The natural path is center and out. If I want to win, that's what the path is. And that's what the body actually does when not encumbered by the lack of coordination, too much stiffness, right? So this center line strength with the elasticity, we use that as a post-activation potentiation tool that if I'm going to do a deadlift, I can set up an elastic band on a BOSU ball. I position my feet so that I can get a compression force to the center. I pull up on the elastic band and I try to lift it as high as I can and send it out. And I'm 1, 2, 3. And then you get off that thing. The first thing you notice, and this is what I tell people, are your feet lifting up easier when you get done with that movement? Because they should and they have to. Otherwise, there's no purpose of it unless you can lift your feet easier. And because the adductor muscle group is unique in the sense that that muscle grip does opposing action at the same joint. So the hip joint can be flexed and it can be extended, we call it torsion, from the same muscle group. Because it's not back and forth, stop and go. It's a figure eight. It's external torsion, external, internal. If you watch someone running really fast, the foot lands here, out, and then it'll come through and it'll go more to here. So that's the natural pattern. And that's what allows the adductor muscle group to do the flexing and the extending. And so when you have the adductors better to pull you down and to press you up, well, it's an advantage. And what I would say, Smitty, is that what I want is the best of both worlds, okay? When you train with me, if you're not measurably stronger at the lifts you like or the lifts you do, if you're not stronger at it, well, then bye-bye. I'm of no value to you. But when I can make people measurably stronger in a rapid time frame that suggests that it's just neurological, it's just position, it's just intent. You're lifting more weight, but physiologically, you're really not that different. Right? Because you found a better way to tie in and communicate and make it all one. What I tell people is I want, like baseball. I created a baseball stealing technique that gets you 8 inches faster to second base, maybe 10 inches faster. And you can get back to first faster. And I think I've had 5 pro major league guys do it in games, okay? So there's people actually doing it and succeeding with it. No one's the guy who mastered it the most, he's done with his career, Rajay Davis. But I had Delano DeShields Jr., fastest man in baseball. He was stealing bases with my technique. Not fully optimized, but he changed what he did to do mine. And then hitting is more important, which is why he doesn't get to display his base stealing prowess if you can't get on base. So now he's not, in the show putting it on. Yeah. But what I tell the baseball players is I want every molecule of your mass moving to second base now. And that means that we set it up in this athletic position where I'm here and I'm coiled. And the first move is intent to move my shoulder on that triangle, go there, hit a pulse, and then on the next pulse, it brings you straight. And if I rotate and false step, the way baseball stealing is done now, right? I'm here, I take a back step and I turn and I go. Every molecule of my mass was not moving to second base now, right? This part of my mass went towards second, and this part of my mass went away from second. My center did nothing. I just reoriented myself so I can run. But what I'm saying is no. We're going to take a 45-degree angle. We're going to hit that 45, stay in the 45 and wait for it. And then boom. So our 0 step, or your 0 step in the old technique, that's our first step. We're loading and we're hitting hard with our first step, and there is no back step. There is no false step. It doesn't exist in the technique that I teach, right?
Wow.
And the things that I teach, if it's physically better, I know with certainty that it sees the sunlight and then it becomes the way. It's only a matter of time because faster is faster. Yeah. And that is the ultimate trump card, that if faster is faster, I don't care. Dumbo needs a feather to fly, okay? I don't care. If he can fly with a feather, I don't care. Okay, it doesn't matter to me. He's flying. All right, let's figure out why and how after. But right now, we need to fly. Oh well, you can't do that because physically. Well, you're it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, Mr. Fucking Scientist. You know what I mean? It's like, and the other thing about the scientists is that the overwhelming majority of them don't practice. They don't train. They just, think about it. And then they look at pictures and then they come up with this idiotic notion that the spine goes through neutral when you're swinging a golf club. And one of his disciples, it's always about neutral. Watch a baseball player come to neutral at ball contact. Dude, you're never neutral. You're never neutral. You will be an arm swinger and you will not play the game at the next level because you are not doing what you need to do. And you have exercise scientists telling you to do the wrong things.
Yeah.
And it's inexcusable. And the difference between these people and the politics and all the nonsense is that the strength coach community, they are good people. They're not bad people. They only want to help. They are in their own way with their ego and whatever. I think most guys who are worth their seed will go through an asshole phase. Not all of them, but a lot of guys, if you're competitive and you
definitely
got something to contribute. Yeah, definitely, right?
Definitely in Jersey.
In Jersey, it was sort of like there's an unwritten code in terms of like even just the way you look at someone can start something.
Yeah, for sure.
Just a glance and, that Italian guy's getting out of his car. He'll smash you.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time, David. What I love about it is just your passion. Like when you're saying that people criticize you for not caring, they definitely haven't met you.
Right.
And that goes a long way in this industry because that's what we're here to do. It's a service industry. And I respect you for that. I respect both of you, Smitty and David, for being innovative in the industry and bringing new ideas, because just talking to you guys, I always leave with so many new ideas. And I guess my final question or my final point would be being someone that is in the spotlight and running against the grain. I'm sure, and obviously you've already brought some of it up, is I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of negativity. And one of the things we get feedback on with this podcast is a lot of listeners will connect with stories of overcoming those things. Is there any message you can leave some of the coaches and lifters that are listening now on maybe how you've dealt with that, or just an overall message on how to continue to pursue what sets your soul on fire?
What I would say is that personal experience is going to be the X factor, because then you can teach the guitar because you can play the guitar. And if I sat in a metal folding chair at a metal folding table looking at a PowerPoint for an hour and a half, and now I know what to do, you have no personal connection to it. You can't give a nuanced cue because you've never even climbed the mountain yourself, right? So for me, the most important aspect is that I'm athletic enough to tinker and then know with 100% certainty that that's worth pursuing and that's not. And I've made mistakes, but I had the leeway with mailbox money. I never had the burden of delivering a 1 hour session, beginning, middle, end. And when I was personal training, like I was perfect. I could finish that hour with continuity, hit everything, and I didn't even have to think. It was just was good at it. But then I'm not a programming guy. I can't tell you how to run your fastest on June 18th, but I can tell you how to run faster right now. You know what I mean? So I'm ingredients, right? And then I bring it to guys who cook pizzas, right? So I'm just bringing you better cheese, better mushrooms, better onions, better peppers, better sausage, better everything. Tomato sauce, better crust, right? Better crust. Yum. That can make all the difference, right? So overcoming it is just trust in self and trust in reality. They have a scientific experiment where they have 5 people in the room all in on it, and the one guy's not in on it. And they show you 3 lines, and one of them's short, and they say, which is the shortest? And every one of the 5 says the longer one is shorter. And the guy is like, he picks the right one. It happens again. He picks the right one. It happens again. He picks the wrong one because he wants to be part of the club. So Les Spellman said something really great. Be willing to learn things from people you don't like, right?
Wow.
Because I'm not here to make friends. I could care less if someone likes me, but if you shit on my work, now you're hurting other people, and we have a problem, right?
Yeah.
So personally, attack me, whatever, I don't care. But if it affects my work and you're denigrating it in anything I do, I'm looking for better, and I want to show me better, and I'll credit you as my teacher. How's that?
Wow.
Show me better. Show me better. There is not better. It's a finite biomechanical reality that head over foot and the derivations of that is perfectly balanced locomotion. So if I'm not routing essentially everything I do to that function, I'm missing the plot. I'm doing something that I can't funnel to the floor. All right. Well, that was a time. It was energy, right? What was the return? Am I optimizing the efforts or am I not? And so I think it's the courage to stand alone is probably what you need. And then the ability to fight for it as long as you believe in it. But the second you find out that it's not, stop fighting. If you're in a hole and you're digging, well, the best thing to do is stop digging it deeper. You know, put the shovel against the thing and fucking use that to climb out of the hole. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's a tipping point. It's a critical mass because when enough. And I am like, if I have a football team and I'm a quarterback, my offensive line is legendary. Donnie Thompson loves me, right? Mark Bell loves me. Dave Tate loves me. Like J.L. Holdsworth loves me, right? I got an offensive line of every one of them can squat 1,000 pounds. And they say that I know what I'm talking about. So once I hit the critical mass of the social proof that the best get better and acknowledge and thank, well, now it's just a matter of time. Everybody has to funnel. So it's like the power law. The coast is the coast for 20 years, and then a big storm comes and it wipes out the coast, right? It wasn't eroding an inch every year, like, oh, and got over there. No, one big event made a huge change and went back to normal. It stayed that way for 100 years, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, for exercise and training, you want to get to that foundation where you're not losing anything and you're always capable of building. My objective is you come to me, I'm going to give you a quantum leap. Like you're better now, but you're on a better trajectory. So you go further and far, you go further and get better than you otherwise would have if you didn't have the foundation. So I really think that foundation is the big change that's going to happen in the industry. And it's on something that everybody just overlooked because nobody's going to complain or teach you how to, you know, drink from a cup. I mean, as long as you can get it in your mouth, you don't care about the efficiency of it. It's really easy to do, right? But yes, David, thank you. I had to sign for my nicotine. He just got some nicotine.
Gotta have that.
So, but yeah, we definitely need to do a part 2 and
for sure.
And then either way, but both is I want to come out and see you guys, and I want you guys to come out and see me and us guys. You know, so whenever that lines up, next time I'm on East Coast, I will see if it's proximal and I can get to see you because there's no substitute for the in person.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But let's queue up a 2, and I'm, you know, if we're talking about this subject, I'll do it, you know, 20 hours. It doesn't matter to me.
I love
this.
Yeah, and I can't imagine.
It's the listeners who we have to have consideration for.
Yeah. No, most of our listeners are in the industry or, you know, at least lifters. And I think they're all anyone that's been listening to us for this long is open-minded enough to want to get better. So I can't imagine anyone walking away from this thinking that you are espousing anything but trying to make people better. So we appreciate you, David.
And again, it was the mailbox money for 20 plus years. If you have all day to do it and you love it and you do it all day, you just get better. And then when you get to a certain insight, the view changes and you see more and you're like, oh, that trail looks like it's going here, but it actually winds over to here. And I couldn't see it before I had this insight, and that insight gave me that insight. And then last thing I'll say, Propulse Power Vest. The Propulsars, the first version, were BBs in a cartridge. So we have a mass that you have to move faster than gravity to elicit that shift. But I have a new propulsor that is a spring-loaded mechanism, and the return on the spring is ridiculous. So not only are you hitting more force, it's springing out and you go up and guys are running faster with it. It's a new plyometric that hits more force and gets you off the ground in the same time. More force in the same time, you get an exponential factor. The power is the strength over the balance, and you want the numerator to be big and the denominator to be small. Stronger is better. Fuck you if you think otherwise. Stronger is better. Why are boys better than girls? We're stronger. That's why, right? Maybe we're more competitive and, grind our teeth harder, but we're stronger. That's it, right? So stronger is better, but it's only an arithmetic gain if you're stronger. But if your balance is better, meaning your attenuation to zero is closer and closer and closer, now you get an exponential increase in the power. And you know that guy who just hits harder than everyone else? And it's like, how the fuck? You're 165 pounds and you hit that 220-pound guy and you both stop. And your contact lens fell out because I found it and put it back in your eye before the next snap. Like, this was football, right? So this guy had done Tai Chi since he was 3 years old. And so he was operating on a whole different level of focus. And when you aim, like the smaller you aim, you still hit when you miss. And then if you don't miss, it's devastating. I wouldn't want to play football now because I know I could injure somebody. If you gave me 6 yards to run at somebody and he's facing the quarterback and he's up reaching for a high one, I could paralyze him. I could break his back. I know I could.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to. I wanted to hurt my opponents, but I never wanted to injure them.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I wanted to hurt you and hurt you bad, so you want to quit, but no lasting effect. And concussions were not an injury back then. So I wanted to ring your bell, make you think it's
sounds
next
like
week.
opiate jits.
No, I'm like water.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna be even more like water.
Water crashes.
Water is cement until it's not.
That's right.
That is a good point.
Thank you so
David,
much, guys.
We appreciate you. Thank you
very
so
much, David. We'll post all your socials and your website in the show notes, so anyone interested can check out what you're up to.
And then send me any clips or anything that I can promote on my end, right?
Will do.
I mean, this is, I call this sort of the network, right? It's the network.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the network who's going to shepherd everybody else who sort of doesn't have the insight, the courage, to whatever, to grab it now. We're skating to where the puck is going to be, and the puck is X on the map spinning. So it doesn't go anywhere but head over foot. That's where it always has to go. And that's where it spins. And so it's easy to skate where it's going to be because it is in one spot.
Yeah.
And I get naming rights because I was for generator. I get the
first one there. We'll keep fighting the good fight.
Trademarks are more valuable than patents in the long run. All right, I'll leave you with that.
Beautiful.
Thank you, David.
All right, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Wait, you don't have.
Yeah.
Are you still there? Yeah. Thank you so
absolutely.
much, dude. Yeah, that was great. I mean, that was an hour and a half. So
yeah, that was quick.
That was